Peace, peace, peace. I am Philip Roundtree, and you're tuned to episode 50 of hashtag You Good Man. In this episode, we'll be discussing the recent tragic death of basketball legend Kobe Bean Bryant, who at the tender age of 41 died in a helicopter accident, along with his 13-year-old daughter Gigi and 7 other people. I'm joined by Kabana Frimpong, founder of Green District Media, and Mr. Angelo Goodwin, real estate investor. Both of these brothers were Kobe fans. They're also fathers, and so we'll be processing the loss of Kobe and what it means for men. We'll be discussing where we were when we found out the news, what our immediate emotional response was, how to deal with the grief and loss. And as always, I'll be giving out strategies in dealing in difficult times. As always, whatever you're listening to, make sure you subscribe so you can get the weekly content and weekly episodes of hashtag You Good Man. Stay tuned.
And I'm just going to hop right into it. It's funny, like when we think of Kobe, and I want to know what your brother's thoughts are on his legacy and his place. And we'll get into the grief aspect and how you were feeling that day. But one of the things about his legacy is just his relentless work ethic, right? And his pursuit of excellence. And so, I heard a story that Dwight Howard told, right? He was like, and people know Dwight Howard, as far as shooting free throws, he's awful, right? He's awful, 50%. And so he said he went up to Kobe and was like, yo, I'm nervous about shooting free throws. And Kobe said, well, shoot 1,000 of them because you're going to miss some.
Right.
And it was simple as that, right? But then I can take that and bring it into my field. I send out emails, dozens and dozens of emails. And the more you send out, everybody not gonna mess with you. Everybody's not gonna reply like you desire to, right? And you might feel those feelings of inadequacy. But what do? Next day, I'm gonna shoot another 1,000 jumpers. I'm gonna shoot another 1,000 free throws, and I'm gonna continue on because then, and it's what we call in mental health is a form of rejection therapy, right? Because once you've been rejected enough, it's just like, it's second nature. Like, all right, you're not internalizing it anymore, right? So, it's funny how that just went hand in hand, because now when I think about it, these emails I send out, this is all a part of the rejection. Like, I've had people tell me no, or they've said, they replied unsubscribe. Like, no, this me, I typed this. This ain't spam, you know what I mean? So when we talk about unsubscribe. So I guess I want to first delve into you, brothers, about and I guess we'll start with you, Angelo, before we hit this break. Okay. And it being on your birthday. Where were you when you found out the news, and what was your immediate, thoughts, feelings, emotions, and behaviors when that happened?
I was at home with my family, my wife and kids, and a few other people, and she had cooked brunch for us all. Wonderful, wonderful cook, by the way. And,
you gotta give her a shout out.
Yeah, Melinda, you're great. And she actually just opened it. She just opened the daycare too. So you're just
That's
awesome.
Good,
just killing it right now. So 2 entrepreneurs in the household.
There you go.
But yeah, so we were at home, and I'm sitting there just chilling, taking it all in, enjoying the festivities. And my sister-in-law came downstairs and she said, "Hey, did you hear about Kobe Bryant?" And I said, "What you mean? What's up? Like, what about him?" She said he just died apparently, and I just felt like the wind was knocked out of me, to be honest with you, and like I can't even say that I was just talking about him, right? Because in my circle of friends, we're always just talking about him, honestly, because we're big sports fans and things of that nature, so we're always debating. So he was a cultural icon.
Yeah.
So to sit through that on a day where it was supposed to be like a proud, happy moment, it really put a somewhat of a damper on things. But again, I did the best that I can to fight through it, and just again, we're still coping.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, did you shed a tear at all?
Today, I it hit me really hard, right? Because and again, I have kids, right? So I have 2 daughters and 1 son, and just all the pictures of him and Gigi, just, you know, smiling and interacting and doing whatever they did, right? and just knowing that relationship and how special it was. Yeah, and that protective energy that we have as fathers and men over our girls, right? It just, I felt it just wash over me, and I couldn't hold back. So I did shed a few tears or what have you. And again, it's everywhere. You can't get away from this situation, so it's tough. It's still hard.
Yeah, when you talk about your daughter, I think that was one of the first things I did. Like, I called my daughter, right? And she was acting like she ain't feel like talk. She was like, "Oh, Daddy, what's up?" FaceTime. I was like, "Baby, I love you," right? Like, I love you. Right. She's like, "I love you too." And I'm like, no, like, I love you. And it's before I think the info came about his daughter. And because I knew that he was potentially leaving his children behind into the afterlife. Yeah. And so, I let her, and I was like, get Daddy's a basketball player that he watched, and feel like he knew, because he's seen him so long, he just passed away. And she was like, "Oh, okay." Then I had to click and remind myself, she's 11, right? First, she has no idea who Kobe is. And it was heavy for me, but I still had to be mindful about just the conversations that I'm having with her, just about death and dying and what have you, because it's a difficult conversation. It's difficult for us to have. So I can imagine. I didn't want to burden her, but I felt compelled to let her know that I loved her, right? Because again, it hit so hard for me, and I think I can speak for all of us, and that's why I'm glad you brothers are here, because we're all brothers of a certain age, over the age of 35, 37, and a vaunted 40.
You just gonna put me out like
I had to put you out. You ain't have to say nothing. I could have been talking about DJ Frosty, right? But that idea that we literally grew up with Kobe, so it's like seeing a peer pass away, and we know with older adults, our elder population, that's the most difficult time when they start experiencing depression, anxiety, because they start to see their peers pass off, pass away, right? And so it's like it's like that moment of clarity, like, wow, could I be next? Yeah. Now, we were having a difficult conversation about the passing of Kobe Bean Bryant yesterday at the age of 41, and his daughter Gigi, the age of 13, and the 7 other passengers, and I feel like, I understand why it's taking place. It's just like I Am David Ruffin and Knees Are the Temptations, right? Because Kobe Bryant was the household, the celebrity, right? But I don't want to, besmirch or somewhat lessen the significance of the lives of the other people who were on that plane with him as well, because they also are leaving legacies. They were also husbands and wives and children to brothers and sisters to people out here, and their legacies matter as well. So we're just going to hop right back into the conversation. We have Mr. Angelo Goodwin, real estate investor, and Mr. Kabin Frempong, founder of Green District Media. They are also members of the hashtag You Good Man Men's Wellness Group that is run on a bi-weekly basis. And I just wanted to bring that conversation to live radio. And when we left off, we were just talking about where we were when we found out the news that Kobe died. It's almost like, you might hear older folk, where were you when MLK died, right? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Where, like, I could tell, I know where I was when Tupac died, right? It was 1997, my mom's birthday, but I was a kid in 97, 12, 13. Again, this one just feels different because, age-wise, we're around the same age. We're both millennials, lovers of hip-hop, and all of the above. So, Kabin, what was your day like yesterday?
It's ironic. You had a birthday yesterday. My daughter's birthday was January 25th.
Wow.
So we had been celebrating her birthday. My wife and I, Roberta, I love you.
There you go.
We decided to do like a hotel party for her, which I still feel like she's a little young for because she's 6, but whatever. So we had a good time, enjoying, the festivities, and then the girls stayed behind and all the boys left. Daddy left as well too. So I was actually at home kind of just hanging out. She was still with the girls. I think checkout was like maybe like 12 or 1 or something like that. So I was just in the house just kind of like, I think something, the Pro Bowl was on or something. So I found out not through, like, nobody didn't tell me. I was just kind of like scrolling through my social media, which is like probably the worst way to find out information, because it's you know, you don't know if it's actually accurate. You're just like, what? And it's such like a shock, right? So somebody who I follow posted a picture, and it said R.I.P. Kobe Bryant, and I was like, what? I didn't even like register, and then it had like a few comments, so I went in the comments section, and people were saying, you know, fake news. They were saying, no, he's not talking about, you know, that he died. He's talking about like his stats, because, you know, LeBron just passed Kobe on the list. So that was like the context of it. But then I started to, you know, just process in my head. I was like, no, that's like a morbid way to say you got passed on the stats. So then I start like, you know, going to like the different sources, and I'm, you know, I think Wikipedia popped up, and it had like, you know, the date of birth, and it had yesterday as like the date of death, and like my heart started beating fast, because I'm like, you know, I kept going, because I don't want to rely on these, you know, these user generated type of sites and stuff like that. So I just kept going or whatever, and I went to ESPN, kept refreshing. I was like, and then somebody sent me a message, like a Facebook message, and it said it was from TMZ, and I'm like, yo, and I at that moment I cried. I was like, so, and then, you know, obviously the kind of like the more, I mean, not to throw shade at TMZ, but some of like the credible, you know, websites started to
listen.
Started to say it, and I was just like, oh, I guess this is true. And then, you know, so at that moment, and then obviously just being a father, you know, when the news came out of his daughter, you know, being with him, like me and my wife both like shed a tear, like, you know, and I don't know. After that, it was just kind of like, you know, friends and people like texting. We started to kind of like have a conversation, and, you know, like my neighbor a couple of doors down, my neighbor across the street, like kind of like, you know, we all started like having a conversation, that conversation where you try to, you know, make yourself feel better by remembering the good. And I was just like, it was still like disbelief. It's still disbelief, like right now. It's just like, you know, like that transition of talking about somebody in past tense is just weird. You know what I mean? It's just
unreal
like,
feeling.
And you know, tried to make the best of the day. I drank some red wine, and just was like, I think I had maybe like 2 cups of red wine. You know what I mean?
Cup,
you know,
not even a glass.
Yeah, I had it in a mason jar.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it was rough, man. It was rough. It's still rough, you know, because I think for me, I don't necessarily connect it just to his basketball. I just think about the man that kind of like he evolved into. You know what I mean? Like, I was thinking about like the fact of when some NBA players like retire, it's like they struggle with that transition from retirement. But I felt like Kobe just retired, and he just moved into like his storytelling, just like seamless. Like it was like amazing. It was encouraging to me, because sometimes, you know, you get stuck and like, you know, maybe even like pigeonholed. Like, oh, okay, you're gonna be a commentator. You're gonna have some position in the organization or something. He was like, nope, I'm going over here. I think he won an Oscar for his play. You know what I mean? Yeah. And all of that was just encouraging. You know.
And you know, you brought up what DJ Frosty Phoenix and I were discussing prior to in pre-production, and it was like, you wouldn't have thought it would be Kobe, right? Because Kobe emulated Mike so much, down to the chewing gum, to the walk, to the fist pump, to the turnaround jumper, right? So it seemed obvious that he would be just like Mike is, right? Mike has over-identified with the role of basketball player for a long time. And what does that mean? What that means is, you know, he left basketball and he wanted to own a team. That's amazing. But he still wanted to be a part of the game somehow, because that's what he knew, right? That's what he knew. And a lot of times, I talk about this a lot, we over-identify with the one thing that we're good at, right? And so when some type of change happens,
like reluctant.
Yeah, whether it's injury and other athletes' area, they might try to find a way to compensate. So you'll see them go into broadcasting, right? They'll try these different ventures because they have no true idea of self outside of the game.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
and
one thing that I was thinking about, right? Is like, especially like, think about basketball. Think about Kobe Bryant playing. There's footage of him like, maybe like 7 or 8 years old. Like from 8 to, when did he retire? 37?
Something
like
that.
All those years, that's all he did was just consume basketball. So to be able to then be like, okay, from 37 to 41, be like, I'm almost like basketball didn't even happen. It's kind of like the vibe that I got from him. And
I'm gonna let you get to your point, Angela, and because I think you bring up a good point. And what I think a part of it is the fact that he was over in Italy, right? He was over in Europe. He had this exposure to life, even though it was basketball influence. He just had this exposure to life. He can speak multiple languages. Who was it? Luka Doncic recently said he spoke in Croatian or whatever it was.
Talking trash in Croatian.
Yeah, and it caught him off guard. Like, wait, what? But again, we're talking about somebody whose culture, who always had the desire to learn and want more. And I think that's part of the greatness and part of what separates him from a lot of his contemporaries, a lot of those who came before and those who will come after. And so, to go out and say, all right, put the basketball down, and the next day, like, all right, I'm good. Be out the spotlight. Right now, I think he was, implementing some of that into Gigi, right, where she had that same killer. I watched a couple of games. It was just like, whoa. Right, and he still had a little bit of that, and I think that's what they talk about, the character or the caricature of Kobe, the Mamba mentality, where the team that beat his daughter's team one year, the previous year they beat him by 1 point. The next year they blew him out 100 and something, like 20, right? And so he made sure they know, y'all beat us last year by 1. Right, and so again, that goes into that idea, that mentality that has served him in various arenas of his life. But it's dope to be able to see somebody who it's just like, all right, you know what? I'm leaving the game.
Yeah,
I'm leaving. And think about it, how some of us are. Like for me in social work, I'm like when I left the full-time gig, I was kind of nervous. So I started looking for more social work stuff. Not to say, all right, you know what, I'm going to try something else. Now, again, it's not apples to apples because he got a lot of money behind him to be able. But still, I think that basic fear, right? Not to say he wasn't fearful or what have you about certain things, but it's just like, the same thing he told Dwight. Listen, I'm going to miss some shots. Right. This movie thing might not work out, right? But I won an Oscar, right? It might flop from here on out, but you got
the music career.
Flopperooski. I still got, listen.
Wait. Don't tell me you bought like a Kobe album. Is that what you're about? You said I still got. So
you really did about to say.
No, I was about to say. I think I got the video.
It was just a single, though.
Tyra
It wasn't an album.
Banks. Your love is like a sword going gently through my body.
I know none of the lyrics. The fact that you know some lyrics,
because it's funny. Like I'm not gonna sit here and say I was a super Kobe fan, right? But everybody had the baby fro. You know what I mean? If you didn't have cornrows like AI, you had the fro, right?
That's
and
nice.
so you listen to it, you see it, athlete rapping, your era with Shaq. I know you know Shaq bars,
but Shaq was like a dope rapper though. I mean, honestly.
But I think we both found out he had a ghostwriter. But I digress. But I know you were about to say something, Angela.
No, I was going to say, I mean, the thing about Kobe is that we've experienced a few different versions of him. He was able to reinvent himself multiple times. You know, we know him from Lower Merion High School, playing ball, taking Brandy to the prom. Then, he was in the NBA, not starting, not getting much playing time, but still being relentless and being maniacal about his craft. Getting on the court, performing at a high level, playing against Jordan, performing at a high level, his mentor and his idol just really going right back at him, wanting to learn everything that he could possibly, getting into that situation out in, I think, Colorado, what have you, coming back again from that situation, beating that case, reinventing himself again. You know, and so there was multiple versions of Kobe, right? And then later years, Kobe changed his game around. He was a high flyer early on. Then he became, you know, the guy with the jump shot and all that.
Shoots 90 jumpers a game,
right?
You know what I mean?
Footwork and all that. But hey, here's the thing. Then when he left basketball, he had no problem with just bowing out and saying, "Yeah, I'm done with this." And reinvented himself again. Yeah. So Kobe. The thing about Kobe that I really connected with personally is the fact that whole Mamba mentality thing. To me, what that meant was my work will always exceed my talents. You know what I mean? Like he was super talented, right? Best basketball player in our area when he was younger, and you know, best basketball player on the planet for many, many years. But however, in addition to all of that, he still outworked everybody in his league for the most part. I mean, his work ethic is legendary, right?
Yeah.
So how is the best player, you know, the most talented, still shooting the most shots, coming in the earliest, leaving the latest, challenging everybody on the floor? So I mean, that's the thing that really that I hold on, and I try to, you know, channel that Mamba mentality in my business, right? And it's very strange the fact that, and I can even show you guys this off air, what have you, but I literally was sending videos to my friends of like Kobe in practice. This was like last week, him in practice, just talking trash, challenging his teammates. He did another great interview on YouTube that I was showing that just really resonated with me. And then this. So I don't know what type of energy was going on, but I'm really locked in right now. Thanks to that, man.
Yeah, no, and I think it's interesting, right? So for me personally, when I found out, and we're about to take a break, I just found out, you know, I think I was on my way to like a store, like, and I just saw it, and I saw TMZ. Now it was different. As soon as I saw TMZ, I was like, oh, this is fact. Right, because TMZ has replaced every other news media. I think Harvey said.
Everywhere.
I think Harvey said somebody from TMZ called Vanessa and told her what happened. Right before the sheriff got involved and was able to tell. Again, it's. I mean, that's
another issue.
With
that's
that.
terrible.
Yeah, I don't like that.
But again, whose responsibility is it, right? And so I would just want to know the news personally.
Not the media outlet. They have a completely different agenda.
Yeah, they might have crossed the line of communicating with the family.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know if I agree with that, and we potentially can explore that on the other side. But it was just, again, it hit me, and that's when I called my daughter, and I shed some tears, right? Because again, it's just like, he's here today, going tomorrow. I mean, the fact that LeBron passed him and he in Philadelphia and what have you, and then the next day, you know, we learn of his death. So it was just impactful for me. But that was the extent of it, because I had to disconnect myself from social media. And I'll talk about reasons as to why I had to disconnect myself from social media and why I recommend others do the same. I just wanted to finish that thought of why I had to disconnect, because after about reading the first two or three posts about Kobe, I had enough. That was all I can tolerate. I couldn't tolerate it anymore. So a lot of us often feel compelled to keep up with the Joneses, and especially in this social media era, and what we don't recognize is that it's impacting our mood, right? It's impacting our thoughts, just bringing that energy, whether it's, you know, just talking about the death, whether it's false information being passed around. It has an impact, and so it's important that we're mindful of what we're taking in. Again, I always say, be mindful of your food. Now, for some people, it's cathartic, right? They get to celebrate Kobe in his life and his legacy, both the good and the unhealthy, by being on social media and participating. That's why, I think part of it, the good, why the NBA had those games yesterday, even though if I was the commissioner, I might have canceled them, right? Because he is one of the greats of the game ever. But again, part of it is, you know what? We get the news and we get to commune as one around 20,000 people, right? So we get to hug, we get to just be around one another and just feed off of one another. So again, this is pros and this cons, and you have to choose what's right for you. Like, you're only responsible for your wellness, right? You're responsible for what you're taking in on a daily basis, because it will impact you. So first, we're going to go to Maurice. How you feel, Maurice?
I'm not feeling too good after hearing the news, but the first thing I heard when I heard that the first thing I did was call my homies that I haven't been in touch with, that we might have had a little falling out over something stupid.
Yeah.
And I called them all up and told them, listen, man, you know what? I love you, man, because you know what? We can't count on seeing you the next day. So and whatever beef we had is over. And that's what the first thing I did, to let all my people know that, you know what? This is silly, man, because you could be going tomorrow, and then I'd be like, oh, I should have did this. I ended that right away.
Yeah.
But it didn't take long. I only had to call like 3 people, but it was enough that, you know, these people, I know if I've been sick a long time. That's why I got to talk radio. But I outlived most of the people that came to see me.
Wow.
But, you know, I just felt that, you know, these people would come in a minute if I called them, and I had to stop. But then I also thought about, I said her name, I can't remember, Ali, that used to be a commentator on the show here.
Fatima.
You know what I'm talking about, Frosty?
Fatima.
Fatima. And me and her used to go at it on the radio, back and forth. But, you know, we always ended off nice. You know, it wasn't, you know, and I was just at a word speak with her, sitting at her table. We was all conversing. And then, you know, that was on a Friday. Come to find out the next day she died.
Oh, wow.
And it messed me up so bad.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I was tore up because I was like a radio junkie.
Yeah. Nah, listen, I definitely appreciate you giving us a call, Maurice. So, and he brings up a good point. Did you reach out to any of your male friends when this transpired, when you found out the news? And I say males in particular because, again, for many of us who identify as men, of being of a certain age, like, again, Kobe was one of those people who, again, he might not have been AI, right? Because AI was just like straight hip hop, and Kobe was a little more clean cut. He's the nerdy county boy who used to be part of your squad or what have you. But again, it resonates, and I think what we saw again across the world, we see men truly be open and vulnerable, and this for some. This might be the only time. The next time might be when another one of their favorite athletes or actors or what have you die. And so it's important that we make space for those people. And so I want to ask you, I have Angelo Goodwin here, real estate investor in Cobb and Frimpong of Green District Media. Did either one of you reach out to any of your homies and say, yo, I love you, or what have you, like Maurice did?
Yeah, I definitely did that. And, you know, that's something I'm very comfortable with anyway, because of just what we do with You Good Man, just being able to get in touch with that side of me that has been dormant for years, right? I think with me getting up in age, so to speak, I don't have any problem with telling my brothers that I love them, and we do speak like that often, not just around these times, but honestly, these are one of the reasons why we say those things, right? Because you want to be able to make sure people know how you feel about them when you have the opportunity to, when they can hear you.
Yeah.
100. The saying,
Yeah. What about you, Frosty? We haven't heard much from you. Have you? Just what were your thoughts? What are your feelings with regards to Kobe Bean?
My first thought was, wow. I got the notification on my phone. I was out with again before the Sunday outing yesterday, on Sunday, and I just got the news blip on my phone. It said Kobe, died, or Kobe passed away, and I said, now how's that possible? Right. That was my first question, and I opened the article up, and it's talked about the helicopter, and then it was developing. Low key, I felt a way of disbelief, and I started to question news outlets. First, say, and the emergency response said, that there was no way for him to survive, but did not know. So you don't write the story before they even get to where they need to get to see if they survived or not. A lot of that was in disbelief, and it was I was in getting my glasses, picking up a new pair of glasses, and the one girl at the front, I was sitting there. I said to my girlfriend, Kobe died. The lady that was helping me said, what? And this other lady came from the back to my patient I was just helping just told me that. Then the girl sitting behind us at the front desk said, what?
Yeah.
And then it actually sparked a conversation between the ladies. That the one lady was helping me, she didn't. Now, granted, not everybody watches everything. She was saying she didn't know what Kobe did. I heard the name, she didn't know what what he was known for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was she old? She was an older lady, or
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the girl up front's, I'm a big basketball fan, and the lady that was helping me was, I didn't peg you, talking about the girl up front for a basketball fan, and the girl up front's like, oh yeah, you know, yeah. White girl with dreads. But that's another conversation entirely.
I would have thought she was a basketball fan. She had dreads, the locks.
But yeah, then after that, me going through the day, and I tried to stay off of social media because I knew people were going to post about it, and I always ask questions of, are you posting because you genuinely had that feeling to want to post about Kobe, or are you posting for likes?
Yeah.
That's
And I think with that, because that's an interesting question. I think that's a question we can literally ask for everybody,
Everything.
right?
Yeah.
Everybody who's ever made a post ever in life, including myself and everybody in this room.
not coming at your genuineness, or you're coming at your genuine feeling.
But a part of it is self-serving, right? A part of it is attention-seeking in nature. Hey, look at me, right? And some people try to justify it for various reasons. This is often interesting, right? Whether we're talking about Kobe, whether we're talking about, always when people post like family members, like, dear Aunt Sharon, I miss you, and what have you.
Yeah.
That's always intriguing to me because
You could have just sent it directly to Aunt Sharon.
No,
they're talking about
I'm talking about if Aunt Sharon had passed
if they
away.
passed.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm sorry.
And so they'll post or what have you, or it's little man. That's cliche. It's stereotypical. it's little hockey. Okay, I'm gonna find the name. It's little Cobbin's birthday, right? Just because you're here, he's 2, right? And it's just like, all right, well, he can't get it. Happy birthday, little Cobbin. Well, little Cobbin can't see social media,
Right.
Yo, tell her mom I said what's up. No, Cobbin 2 years old, right? But it's something about this idea of this connectedness that we feel from social media. So it's like, for a lot of people, I want to feel a part of something, right? And so this is the easiest way to feel a part of something. You cannot have any friends in the outside world. You can be the pariah at school. You could be the person, the nerd they make fun of. But you get in social media and you get a clique, you get a group of friends, and you can have who you might not necessarily know. And there you are. You're that superstar.
You're the page
right?
that people can go to for all the information. You share all the good stories first.
And so it's like a validation that
memes,
comes from it. Like, again, I'm in the know, right? And so again,
You know how many times I saw the same story get shared at the top? Like people, oh my gosh, it was the same.
And the algorithms don't help, right? The algorithms don't help. Man, this time is flying by. When we talk about legacy, right? And legacy is so complex. I think when we have conversations about people's legacy, especially when we're talking about celebrities, it's usually in a way of deification, right? Where we look at them as a god, right? That's how we hold our celebrities. We hold them in high esteem, high regard, especially here in America. And so for Kobe, it's complicated, right? For me personally, we're going to get the brothers' input, but for me, it's complicated because, again, like I said, he on the basketball court, even though I rooted against him for a lot of years, I recognized his game and who he was, right, and how he goes down as being one of the all-time greats, right? We know about his work ethic. We know about how he appeared to be, from what we saw in all the pictures and imagery, a family man, right? We saw this connection, these pictures between him and his daughter Gigi. And I don't even want to say that. I'm trying to couch how I say this, not to sound. Cliche. I don't want to say fitting, right? But it was like they're the same person, so it makes sense. Because you see so many. No. But still, we have our children. Like my daughter is like the polar opposite of me, right? But with him, they both seem like to be the same person. Like you see her in her heels and gown coming from a prom, and she dribbling the basketball. That's Kobe-esque, right? That's Mamba mentality. And so for them to pass together, right? I could picture those last few moments where you just hugging your daughter, right? And consoling her, even, knowing the pending outcome. we know what he did outside of basketball with the winning an Oscar, which is amazing, the work that he's doing. But I can't ignore personally the Colorado rape case, right? He was the most high-profile person I can remember since Mike Tyson to be charged of some type of sexual assault. And so, again, that does nothing to diminish his legacy, right? And I take that back, right? Because I'm not I'm not a survivor. I wasn't sexually assaulted, right? So for that person who DJ Frosty Phoenix might have seen, who like had no idea who Kobe was, if she would have said, "Oh, I just know him as a sexual predator," I couldn't fault her for that, right? Is that in totality who they are? But I think people will be quick to say, "Well, he did X, Y, and Z," all of these positive things, but then we bring up the positive things. Everybody brings up the positive thing, but when you bring up this sexual assault case in Colorado that did a lot to shape who he was as a human being, right? He had an affair with this person. I wasn't present, so I don't know how it went down, right? So I'm not here to say guilty or innocent. Because I know a lot of things happen legally when somebody is guilty and when somebody's not guilty.
That
right?
story came up again when you Google him now, like a revisiting of that case.
But I think it should. And so Pablo Torre, somebody who I like to read, what he said was, we have to think of Kobe Bryant as human. To mention his flaws is not to dilute his myth. To acknowledge his sexual assault case in Colorado is not to dishonor his greatness, merely to complicate it. If we look at him as a human being, yes, he's flawed, right? We all make mistakes or what have you. And that's just what comes with it. But I know in death, which is a sensitive time, death and dying, which is a sensitive time, people aren't comfortable having those types of conversation. Because the response I've gotten on social media was, it's tasteless, right? It's the equivalent of talking behind somebody's back on steroids. I don't even know what that means. It's cowardice. Yeah. Right? But no, this is this person's life. And when we talk about celebrities, their life are lived out in public.
Right. So you get that opportunity to, everything is exposed as much as possible, right? But my question to you, and we talked about this off air, is why do we feel compelled to bring that up right now? That's my biggest question. Why now?
Because, again, if we're talking about somebody's life in totality, now we can pick and choose. If somebody say, no, we're only picking and choosing how we want to view them, that's up to the individual, right? But I have sisters on here like Lakeisha Anthony, right? She's somebody who I hope to have on the show. She's a sexual assault survivor, right? She does tremendous work in the community with regards to sexual assault victims. So for her, I don't know if she's the biggest basketball fan, but I know she's dealt with girls and women and men, boys and men who've experienced some type of sexual assault in their life, right? And so if this is the information she has of them, that's not to say she's wrong, right? Now,
no,
I would say
I think it's a right or wrong situation.
Yeah, I think, again, we're just talking about the complexity of being a human being, but it's only until we're able to bring that person down off the cross to really assess and analyze them, right, and see them as being a human being, right, being a fallible person, and everything goes into the story.
So the purpose of bringing it up is to talk about his flaws. That's it. I mean, so I understand Angelo's question is like, okay, why are we picking now to do it? Now, granted, if we're going to just tell the story, if there's some type of, we're having some type of long conversation about Kobe when he first came in the league, and yeah, that makes sense. But I always think find it. I guess I can kind of piggyback off of that tasteless sentiment if you're just kind of like entering the conversation like, oh yeah, he's a rapist, and just being real dismissive. Because like shortly after his death, I started seeing like people saying, these posts. There was like a comedian who was like, yeah, he was happy that he's dead, and the rapist. Yep. And it's the same. It's kind of like the same exact
There's an
type of
opinion piece
lane.
right now that says we have to tell the whole truth about Kobe Bryant, and that's one in the first 3 paragraphs. The rape case is one of them.
Yeah, but
So,
I think it's and for me, I understand that, right? Because I would say the same thing to somebody that's saying, like, again, I bring up Lakeisha. If she's like, oh, you know what, he's a rapist, X, Y, and Z, it's like, well, no. What about this other side of him, right? The positive side, the family man who altered his life after this unfortunate incident, right? Like so you know. Both sides, again, both stories have to be told. But if you see so often, I think I'll say this. I look at both parties as being quote unquote wrong, right? By not telling his whole story, right? So Sports Center, if we understand what Sports Center is, ESPN is, they're an outlet geared towards sports. So if they show all the sports aspects of what have you, but again, for these other outlets, telling the whole story is imperative because, again, we have to realize that these people are human. They want us to remember that his wife is human and you know, his surviving children are human, but yet the very person we just refuse to look at him outside of the entity that he's become, right? It's complex. There's no right answer, but again, I don't begrudge anybody.
So again, my thing is this: why wasn't this story trending last week or 2 weeks ago or what have you?
Because he was alive.
I understand that, but if you want to, bear the cross of making sure this stays at the top of the headlines or what have you, then, I mean, feel free. And I don't have a problem with us telling the whole story of who Kobe Bryant was. But like you said, Coppin, we're in mourning right now for the totality of his life, right? We get that everybody is flawed. I don't think anybody walking this earth right now didn't do some things that they aren't proud of, right? But I just really don't feel comfortable with us constantly, his wife is grieving, his kids, his family. Like, can they get a minute for a second before y'all start doing this?
No.
Please? No?
Well, yes.
Clearly not.
Says
Clearly
no.
not. Yes.
Right.
Yes, but no, right? Because again, AOC, she, what is she, a state rep? Alexandria Cortez?
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Yes.
Congress.
Congress.
Okay.
Thank you, DJ Frosty. Listen, what I say, I'm not I didn't write her name out. Right. That's why I called her AOC.
Yeah.
But last week she said that you don't make $1 billion, you take $1 billion. Right. And so
I know what that means.
When we talk about Kobe, when we talk about Jay-Z, when these things come, they've made their profit off the people. Right. They've made their money off. Kobe made every dime that he has by taking it from the people. Right. I
mean, that's business.
That's capitalism. But a part of that is his celebrity, right? Okay. He put himself in the spotlight, in the limelight.
Right.
And so, yes, we have to acknowledge both the healthy aspects and we also have to acknowledge the unhealthy aspects. Before we get to that, we're going to take Miss Diane from Southwest Philly's call. How you feeling, Miss Diane?
Good. Good. Hi. Thanks for taking my call. I don't know what gentleman was talking, but I agree that this is not the time to talk about his flaws. This man, we lost a legend, then he lost his daughter. I think at this time we should be praying for the family, his wife and his family, that, because I can't even imagine a family going through that. That's a tough loss, and just like I'm in a group, and I did something on Dr. King's Day. And then some lady, she said, well, if she found out he was a womanizer, she'd stop looking at him like she looked at her. And she was talking about me. But we all have flaws that we're ashamed of. You know what I'm saying? Sin is sin, If you just say, Luca, who without sin, you can throw the stone at that woman that was in trouble. So I think this is not the time to talk about his weaknesses, what he's done wrong in his life. This is a time to, pray for the family right now, because the family, I know they are suffering. And then maybe we can talk about that later on,
Thank you so much for your call, Miss Diane. And I think, first, Angelo Goodwin, who is one of my guests, he's sitting here shaking his head yes that you agreed with him. And that's the worst thing that can happen because you know, full disclosure, when we do have the You Good Man men's wellness group, he's always the one that's trying to challenge somebody, right? So he feel good right now. And then we also are joined by Calvin and Frempah of Green District Media. But you know, I think we can agree to disagree because, you know, yes, it is loss, right? But for that young woman in Colorado who believes what she believes, let's not minimize what she experienced. It doesn't matter if it was 20 years ago or 2 days ago, right? When Bill Cosby passed, that's going to be a big part of his legacy, right? We can't acknowledge that. Is one bigger than the other? I don't think so. Right, but again, we look at what somebody did in totality. So the same way we're quick to remind people about all the good that Bill has done when they bring up his unhealthy and predatory behavior. We have to bring up that with Kobe Bryant as well. And so again, I don't think it does nothing to his legacy as number one as a basketball player, right? Because his basketball player legacy is signed, sealed, delivered. Right, and cemented, and it will be in next September. As far as his family life, his legacy is about his surviving kids and his wife going forward, and that's truly what matters. The rest of us, keep it real, our opinions really don't matter, honestly. Right, but for me, and the purpose of conversation, it's important that, again, for me, that we have this conversation in totality about what his legacy is. So I'm gonna get to Calvin, because again, my thoughts on his legacy is I just choose to look at the entire human being. I could celebrate both. I could celebrate all his accomplishments, but I also can look at and say, you know what, you've made very poor decisions that impacted the very people that you're saying that we need to be sensitive to, which is his wife and what have you, right? So we're being asked to be more sensitive than he was during that time. Yeah. Right, when he made those unhealthy decisions, which we all do. So that's where I stand. Where do you stand with regards to his legacy? And then we're going to take a break after you.
Yeah, so I think, you know, the why is always powerful for me, right? The why question, whatever situation I find myself in. I always try to push back with why. Right. So in this particular case, like, OK, we're telling the story. We're telling a total story. Cool. I don't have a problem with that. I think my pushback would be the why. What is the purpose? Why and what is the purpose of telling it right now, so close to his death, while the country is still, the world, I won't even say the country, while the world is still mourning him, while his family is still mourning him.
Can I just cut you off real quick? And just to answer this before I forget. Yeah. The reason is because there are other people out there with that he affected, right? And so we can't ignore them, right? So what makes the world's mourning much greater than that one woman in Colorado?
So let me ask this question. Why is that? Piggyback off of that, though. I got to jump into that point. So do we know what her reaction is right now?
No, we don't. But
right.
But so
what
I'm
it's
saying,
kind of like, and it's kind of like when both them Jean's brother hugged Amber Geiger, right? We all had a problem with it.
I didn't.
Well, I know we had a conversation about this. We talked about this in our group. But that's how he chose to deal and cope with it. What if she's at peace with that whole situation at this moment? You know what I mean? But the world won't allow that. The world is like, oh, it's right back in front of our faces. Like, she could possibly, I'm not saying she is because I don't know, but there is a possibility she's closed that chapter of her life. You know what I'm saying? So we do have to consider that as well.
So, and we're going to let you, because we're about to go to break, Kyle, and we're going to let you finish your point. I promise you I won't cut you off. Yes, I will. I will. Because he know how. No, you be cutting off.
But I'm glad you did that because I wanted to get back to you. So that's great.
And this is what happens at the hashtag You Good Man. And I feel like, you know, I appreciate this because, again, this is what we don't hear when we talk about vulnerability and emotional and healthy conversation and healthy conflict between brothers. Because we sitting here, we don't agree. Right, we don't agree, and what happens in the streets when we don't agree? It's either you fighting, or you shooting, or you dismissing a brother for the rest of their life and you never going to interact with them again, right? So this is showing that live radio, that I'm sitting here having disagreements with these brothers, but yet we can still come back down and
he wanted to dap, Phil. You left him hanging.
Oh, you wanted to dap? I don't even know if I wanted to dap you, though, right?
It's like that.
That's after the show.
That's how you feel.
You my man. We continue to have Mr. Angelo Goodwin, real estate investor, and Kabata Frempong of founder of Green District Media, who are also members of the hashtag You Good Man Wellness Group. And when I decided to bring the group to the airwaves, just so you can hear how brothers interact. Yes, is something cliche over a topic of sports, right? But I think it's something bigger than that when we talk about Kobe Bryant, when we talk about death, right? When we're talking about death and dying, because again, the perception is that men, in particular black men, internalize what it is that they're feeling and not be expressive. And what we've seen over these last 24 hours are that no, men are extremely emotional and vulnerable, and that we feel, I think all of us. Did you cry, DJ Frosty? Frosty Phoenix?
No, I was in disbelief. I didn't cry, no.
Okay. All right. So 3 out of 4 cried. 3 out of 4 of people identified as male in here cried and shed a tear. And I know, again, it probably happens more often. It should happen more often because, again, life isn't easy. We just make it look easy. And so prior to the break, we were having a conversation that went off the rails when Angelo started wilding. But
Really?
but Kabano was just, he was, were you wrapping up your comment on Kobe's legacy?
I think I got my point out.
Okay.
I'm sure I'm gonna, step in if need be, if I feel like I need to say something.
Yeah, he used to be the mediator between us, man. Between everybody in the group.
Yeah.
Yo, that's that middle child syndrome. I got an older brother and a younger sister, and it's so weird. I mean, I might be saying too much on the air, but yeah, that's definitely my mindset.
Yeah. So we're going to get back into this conversation, and not only about legacy, but about grief, right? Because grief and loss, because this is what a lot of us are experiencing, and maybe we don't have the name to put it to identify it as being, but this is what it is. This is what you're seeing. There is a cycle of grief that takes place. So it starts with the shock and denial that DJ Frosty Phoenix brought up, right? I think that, well, again, once I heard TMZ, see, I saw it from TMZ, and it talks about their power and how influential, I automatically believed it, right? Yeah. And I didn't have this disbelief because I recognize that life is short and it's fleeting. And then my brother died when I was 17. He was 24. God bless the dead. So I think after that happens, you lose somebody that close to you, like you realize everybody is fair game, right? Everybody is fair game.
This is true.
And then the next part of the grief cycle is anger, right? This frustration, this anger, and I think that part of that is coming out now, right? It's not coming out as far as vitriol, right? But it's coming out as far as, yo, don't be talking about Kobe outside of his accomplishments, right? Don't be doing that. That's not cool. Then we get into depression and detachment, dialogue and bargaining, right? Desiring to tell the story, struggling to find meaning. I think, again, for men of a certain age, a lot of us are looking like, yo, at least Kobe found his purpose. Some of us are still searching. Now, I just happen to be here with a couple brothers who found, as far as when we talk about just work-wise, something that they enjoy and love doing. I can't speak to whether it's their passion or not, but when we talk about real estate investing, and then Angelo being with his family, and Kabana as well, being family men, what they're passionate about, and videography, both leaving careers at a place that charges at least $300 a month for your cable bill. I'm not going to say their name because they're not paying no bills, but they both left the same place, right? And then we get into acceptance. We start to realize, like, you know what? Yeah, this is it. This is real, right? This is real, and this is what happens. And then we're able to return to a meaningful life. Where we are now in this 24-hour news cycle, this microwave society, a lot of times we don't even give ourselves the opportunity to process what we're experiencing. We do those posts that DJ Frosty Phoenix was talking about, where we inundate our feeds with posts, and we think that that's a part of it. which it is, right? It helps some people. For some,
form of expression.
A form of expression to get that energy out, and that's something I always talk about as a therapist. Figure out a way to get it out, whether it's socially. We want it to be healthy, right? But whether it's socially acceptable, posting on social media, what have you, that's a different story. But we want you to get that out. But I don't think we give ourselves enough time to truly deal. So I'm interested in knowing your thoughts, the listeners, on when we talk about grieving and how you're grieving this Kobe Bryant death that again resonates, because I don't say he's from Philly, right? I think that's another about the complications that come with it. I don't view him as a Philly person. I view him as a suburban, right, who had Philly heart, Philly game, but it still never clicked like Sheed Wallace or Aaron McKee. Like, when you say Philly, you're like, all right, I think about them brothers, no matter how dope his game is. So, yeah, we definitely want to hear from you at 215-634-8065 or 1-866-361-0900. So just when we talk about grieving and the grief process, have you thought about how you plan to manage, or how have you been managing just your feelings with regards to this situation? Or just how you deal with grief in general, because we all have our methods and routines. So we'll start with you. Angela.
I mean, I'm dealing with it by, sharing my thoughts, my stories, my opinions about his career and things that I know from afar as a fan. I was diving more into, again, his business dealings post-basketball to get an understanding of, what was driving him to get into illustration and animation and things of that nature, and I really feel like it was amazing, like you mentioned earlier, Cobbin, how he seamlessly just transitioned, like it was flawless. It was nothing, and he was such a natural. And then again, we talk about that Mamba mentality. I'm now taking the word grit really out of my lexicon and substituting it for Mamba mentality now, because that embodies exactly what that is. Again, you may be talented in something, you may have all the skills and all of that, but at the end of the day, you want to always outwork the next man. And this is a competition. Yes, the world is about competition.
And he know how I feel about that. Right?
That's why you looking at me.
He was ready to go.
So me being the facilitator of the group, I gotta push back against that, because I think that's what does so many of us, especially black men, a disservice, right? Because we look at one another as competition, and I know you don't mean it in that sense.
Exactly.
Right? I know you don't mean it in that sense, but a lot of people can't really delineate the difference between the two, right? And so I think when we start looking at others, I think Kobe definitely, he wanted to be better than Jordan.
Yeah.
Right? But what motivated him was to be the best him. And I think I always say it can start about being about somebody else, but it has to end about being about you, right? And pushing yourself, whether you get to Jordan's level or not, right? If you put in the work and where your skill set is, that it might get you there. And I think with Kobe, one of the reasons why he resonated with so many people is because if we keep it real, right, he, as far as skill wise, right, he's not no LeBron, right? And that's not to diminish him. It's to say that he got great because of his work ethic.
That's exactly right.
He wasn't born with these amazing talent. He wasn't Randy Moss.
He wasn't prodigy.
He wasn't a prodigy. Even though he had all this experience, he might have been an intellectual prodigy as far as being able to absorb information. But as far,
I think he was a basketball prodigy. The way he broke down the game, absolutely. Like
from an intellectual perspective, but I think the physical component, like his physical abilities, he wasn't. Harold Miner was better than him.
There's
as
not
far
many.
As the physicalities.
What you name? What,
I'm talking about as far as
you just named LeBron James. There's not many. That's like a one-on-one guy. You know what I mean? Shaq is like a one-on-one guy. Kobe.
Prime example right now.
Yeah.
If we talk about who's more talented, right? Just sheer talent, Ben Simmons or Kobe when he came in, right? We're going to say Ben, right? Because just far as his ability to run like a gazelle, right, to jump out, he can jump out the building
with that size.
But
and all
exactly,
that,
just far as the physical component, right? Ben Simmons and a slew of other people. Dwight Howard was a physical freak, right? He was a physical freak. But again,
We're talking about when did Kobe come in the league?
no,
90s?
but I'm talking about the physical component. I think what I'm trying to say is highlight the fact that he didn't have all of those attributes. He was athletic, right? He was athletic, but he got, especially when his skills diminished, and he had to
His body started
transform.
breaking down.
He had to transform his game, right? Again, it was that work that he put in.
So you're saying he's known not for being able to score, just say 100 points in the game, but being tenacious enough to get better over time.
Facts.
It's naturally about getting better over time, as opposed
I
to.
think that's like trying to compare like Shaq to like Wilt Chamberlain. Like you if you're looking at him physically, yeah, Shaq is like a.
No, but I'm saying
But we talk about 20. When did
No,
Ben
but I'm
Simmons come
saying-
in the league?
but I'm
Like,
saying,
also
like,
talking about a comparison like LeBron coming
talking about
straight
just
out and
the
doing
physical
well.
a physical gift. You just walk on the court and you already
and
just
you got
it.
Zion Williamson. Whenever he walked on with those little white kids,
Right.
and he was housing them,
He was
right?
already
He
ahead
was just
of-
that
yeah,
bull.
right.
LeBron was already doing well coming into the league, coming
Right.
straight out. Kobe was on the Knicks,
No,
and then
no.
got traded. He was on the Knicks first.
No.
What was that trade
He
they
was
did in
drafted by the
97?
Hornets.
Hornets.
He was
The
drafted by
Hornets, right? The Hornets. No, because then they talked about. Remember the whole
Yeah,
conversation
yeah,
about the
yeah.
reporter
Yeah.
mixing up
Yeah,
the names.
yeah.
That's another conversation
my goodness.
entirely.
Yeah,
She apologized for that, by the way.
And she didn't say the N word.
She didn't. Actually, she didn't.
She
She
didn't.
didn't say that word.
But yeah, we don't want to
But-
get off on tangents. This is what
Yeah,
happens
no,
in the
the point
men's
is-
wellness group. We
Traded to
go
the-
off on
Traded
tangents.
to the Lakers, and then his career skyrocketed from there. So it's.
But
to
what
that
I wanted
comparison.
to say
Go
about
ahead.
the competition thing, though, like you said, when I mentioned the word competition, yes, I'm in a competition or I'm competing against myself, being a better version of me, being a better person than I was yesterday. So, and I consider that to be a healthy competition, right? Now, you also can have a healthy competition amongst your peers.
for
You know what
sure.
I mean? As long as it's not anything nefarious or anything like that, right? So you don't want to be, I'm not trying to take you down or cut your knees off.
Yeah.
But again, we're just pushing each other to be better. So that's what I think Kobe had as an advantage against his contemporaries. He would not be outworked by anybody, and that's why I said that Mamba mentality. I want that to resonate with me. I want that to be like my mantra in my business. Right? I'm not going to be outworked. Now, wherever I land at the end, he landed at fourth in scoring. If that's where I land, if I'm not the biggest real estate guy, but I'm amongst the greats or what have you, so be it. I know I got every ounce of my ability and skills. I maximized it.
Yeah,
So,
and I think that's what the goal is. I think it's interesting, right? Like we take these aspects of people just historically, and again, it goes to how we view our celebrities, right? We want to take the good, right, and leave the other stuff, no matter what it is, right? We want to leave that behind. Well, we want to think about, Martin. What was he saying? Martin Luther King. We want to think of him in a certain light. We don't want to think about him, infidelity about Martin, right? That's just not what we want because it's uncomfortable for us because then, again, we have to bring them back down to being human. And if we bring them back down to being human, then what do we really have to either aspire to be or deify or we'd have to look at ourselves, right, and truly look at ourselves and realize, you know what, we're human too, right? So we want to put them in a box like they have these special gifts, right? Part of Kobe's special gifts was that he was 6'6", right? That's just something we can't help. But it's easier to look at them and say, oh, they had all of that because again, it makes us look different about our situation if that makes any sense. Right, so we won't be as harsh on ourselves if we think that somebody had an advantage. Does that make
we
sense
always
to you?
like to do that. You know what I mean?
So with celebrities or what have you.
Yeah, both of their parents were professors or something like that, or you know what I mean. So yeah, we love to do that. But I'm again to piggyback off of what you were saying, as far as Kobe being 6'6" was one of his great skill sets. You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately, he was born with that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So again, he used that. I think he was actually 6'7", but he used that and he built off of all of that. You know what I mean? He just built off of it. His dad was an NBA player, so he was naturally supposed to be in the league, right?
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, and so briefly, if you could just talk about before we go to break, and for our next guest, Miss Brittany Smalls, who's doing an amazing job sitting over there in the corner. We appreciate you waiting patiently. Just talk about Kobe's legacy to you, and if you could, like 90 seconds.
Yeah. I mean, so I guess to me, I kind of, just because of where I'm at in my life, I kind of look at it in reverse. I don't necessarily, even though we grew up with Kobe, I think just where I'm at is kind of obviously a similar place to where he was at before he passed. You know, just kind of focus on your children. Like, even with his star power, he was going to go coach his daughter's team, like putting his daughter kind of ahead of himself. You know what I mean? The path that he had chosen for himself, like, okay, my career, this thing that I had spent a majority of my life doing, I no longer do, and I need to kind of like move in this new direction, and moving into that space gracefully, like, you know, not really looking back, not being bitter. You never really heard, you know, I mean, I think he got his fix from that show that he would do, was Detail, yeah. But even that was even kind of like revolutionizing, you know, it was something completely different. It was more of, he was very, very passionate about storytelling. So that was just kind of an extension of that. It was like, oh yeah, this is the thing that I did, but I'm going to look at it from this kind of like different perspective, like a storytelling aspect of it. So I think about his legacy kind of like in reverse. I think about where he was at the place when he, you know, where he was at in his life at the point when he died. You know, just kind of being in that season, wanting to be a great father, wanting to be a great husband, you know, and then just kind of work my way back and just kind of think about him and ultimately wind up of him being that 18-year-old kid. Like, oh, yeah. Because I remember, you know, being an 18-year-old kid looking at Kobe like, yo, he doing what? He did this? You know what I mean? And I'm still amazed by it, you know. I'm a, you know, a forever fan of him. It's not too, you know, men, might not feel like extremely comfortable saying like, oh, yeah, I'm a fan of, you know, but I've been a lifelong, you know, like Kobe fan and just, you know, admired him, you know, from afar, obviously. So, yeah. I hope that was 90 seconds.
No. That's love. That's love. We definitely appreciate that. That is Mr. Carpenter Frempong, founder of Green District Media, and we have Mr. Angelo Goodwin. Now I'm remembering your names for the rest of my life. Angelo Goodwin, real estate investor. So before we end, I want to have a conversation on coping strategies, right? Because, and as y'all all know, when I have the group, it's all about, okay, we can vent, but we need strategies that's gonna help us, right, during these difficult times. Because unfortunately, Kobe's not going to be the last person to die, right? God forbid, knock on wood, that is not us, right? But somebody's going to die that we know, love, care about, admire, or what have you. And it's important that we learn how to deal in the midst of it. And so the first strategy that I want to give out, and the brothers, I want them to give, you know, their strategies as well as how to deal with it. Listen, log off. Like, I was trying to find I needed like a notification button to let me know when the Kobe posts are over, right? Because I don't need to see that personally. I'm okay with where I am. So what I had to do was I had to log off. Yesterday, after I got a couple of them, nah, that's enough for me. I've reached my limit. You have to, you know your ledge, right? That's what we call knowledge. You have to have that type of wisdom. To know when enough is enough. You do not have to be involved with everything, right? I don't begrudge anybody. Listen, I love y'all calling in. I love y'all listening, right? But if you like, oh my goodness, another Kobe conversation, let me turn this off and let me go do something productive. Let me go cook. Let me go do X, Y, and Z. I'm cool with it. Just don't do that tomorrow. But I'm okay with it, with you doing that right now. Why? Because again, this is about you, man. This is your life. Right? Your wellness is your responsibility. We can't allow other people to dictate how we grieve and how we cope. So that's just one strategy. Log off. You do not need to be in the know, because I promise you, Trump's still going to be in the impeachment process tomorrow. He's still going to be president for the next 90 days, right? God bless the dead. Kobe is still going to be gone, right? These things are going to continue to be. The only thing that you can control is self. So what about you, brothers? What strategies do you think that you'll utilize going forward, whether it's exercise, whether it's meditation, or what have you?
Well, I'm recently, I don't know if I necessarily bring this up, but, obviously I go to my therapy sessions, right, where we just have, it's like a designated place to resolve, or have conversations about whatever it is that's bothering me. I go bi-weekly. It's kind of interesting that the You Good Man falls like in between.
Yeah.
So it's like I go to my therapy session this particular, Monday, and then the next Monday is the You Good Man. So I think seeking them out, especially if you know that you're going to, if you know that you're not right, or this just isn't sitting well with you, obviously just if you have access, I'm sure Phil would want, probably at this point you're probably going to put the plug right for you. There you go.
I mean, I guess because I was trying to respond to our Facebook people,
Sorry,
but shout out to the people on Facebook Live.
Set you up with the alley-oop.
Yeah, the alley-oop. So if you're interested in learning about that hashtag You Good Man Wellness Group, you can send me an inquiry on my website, www.quadify, QUAD as in dog, EFY, LLC.net, and just click the contact us and send me an inquiry, and I can add you to the mailing list. And it's only for people who identify as male, so you can be, I'm not gonna get into all the terminologies, right? But you can, as long as you identify as male, you can come through.
Yeah. So yeah, I think seeking out those, having like healthy conversations, and we have that space, but I'm fortunate enough to have a therapist. If you're fortunate enough to financially able to have a therapist, bring that conversation up with the therapist. Like, hey, there's something about this Kobe death situation that's just still bothering me, and having that conversation. Like I said, I still have a week to kind of like figure it out. I mean, it might come up in a conversation with my therapist. So
yeah. What about you, Angela?
Well, today I worked out like a madman. Again, just channeling that energy. Tomorrow I probably will do the same. I've been wearing my Kobe's. I'll probably wear a couple pair. This week I'm a sneakerhead, so I'll probably be wearing a few different Kobe's this week.
Wealth.
Well, you say he real estate.
Yeah, I had Kobe since the Kobe
The Adidas ones?
the eights, the
The
Adidas,
Crazy
the
Eights.
Crazy Eights.
Yeah. Good. That's a good show. Yeah, but those little surface level things that I'm just going to continue to do, and also just have those conversations with all the Kobe fans around me. Again, Kobe was never my favorite player, but again, I did respect him a lot. It was fun he was a Laker, right? And I'm a Sixers fan, so
yeah.
It was always fun to kind of root against them. But again, you knew what type of animal he was, right? Everybody did, right? And it was cool. So and then again with his post playing days, just seeing how he was just getting ready to really take the world by storm was cool. So I'm going to continue to listen to some of his teachings and some of his interviews about business, because I'm gonna use that stuff and apply it to my business.
Yeah.
And again, just continue to try to be the best father, husband, man. Tell anybody, if I feel compelled to say I love you, I'm gonna tell somebody that.
Yeah.
Well, I love y'all, man.
I love y'all as well.
I love you too.
I love all
A whole
black
lot of love going
Yeah,
on.
y'all might this might be groundbreaking on word. Right? You got all these black. Why you didn't say you love us, DJ Frosty Phoenix? What's going on, babe?
I was playing I Love Y'all, man.
Yeah, it's Michael.
Just as brother to brother.
Yeah, right. Yeah, greatly appreciate it. Yeah, any beefs or anything, I don't really have those, but I'm just challenging people to go reach out to somebody. If you got a problem with somebody that is probably petty and something that you guys really need to move on from, please, I'm begging you, just reach out to that person. And,
Who was it? The
and
brother
kill it.
Maurice called him. Was that his name?
Yeah. Shout out to Maurice.
Yeah, that's something.
That's
That's
how it gotta
amazing.
be.
Yeah,
That's
that's
how it has
amazing
to
to
be.
just actually something beneficial comes out of it. Like you're able to bury the hatchet with, you know, somebody who you have been beefing with, or even like I think he said it was like something minor. You know. But hey, just being able to do that. So let this situation, you know, have some positive positive response in your life.
Absolutely.
You know? That's encouraging.
I definitely appreciate you brothers for coming through. That was Mr. Angelo Goodwin, a real estate investor, and Mr. Kabana Frempong of Green District Media. It's been a heavy conversation. It's been a heavy conversation, and interesting, but also necessary. I think things like this help me in the coping process, right? And dealing, not just being able to internalize it or just post on social media, but to have real open conversation about it. And I think we all owe it to ourselves to truly seek out whatever that Mamba mentality is for us. Again, yes, I may say, you know, the legacy needs to be told in full, but also the components of Kobe and people of Kobe's ilk are the strengths, right? I want to take the strengths away from people, because we all have a strength, no matter what it is, and we need to again use that and allow that to be the light to guide us forward. Again, I appreciate you, brothers. This has been a hashtag You Good Man Wellness Group production.